Just one more signature needed on this consent form.
And this covers the updated address as well.
Yes, that's correct.
I don't care if your daughter is sick. Rules are rules. Step back, now. The gate agent's voice cut through the terminal like a knife, drawing stares from nearby passengers. Little did anyone know that this moment would change airline policy forever, and the man standing just a few feet away would make sure of it. If you've ever felt powerless against corporate policy, this story will touch your heart. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories of ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances. Mark Wilson clutched his 6-year-old daughter Emma's small hand tightly as they approached the boarding gate. Her other hand gripped her favorite stuffed rabbit, its once white fur now gray from years of being loved. Dark circles shadowed Mark's eyes, evidence of another sleepless night spent monitoring Emma's fever. "Daddy, my tummy hurts," Emma whispered, leaning against his leg. "I know, sweetheart. Just a little longer and we'll be on the plane. Then it's straight to Grandma's house where you can rest properly." Mark forced a smile, though anxiety churned in his stomach. This trip wasn't planned. 3 days ago, Mark had received a call that his mother had suffered a stroke. As the only family she had left, he needed to get to her immediately. The timing couldn't have been worse. Emma had come down with a stomach bug, but he had no choice but to bring her along. There was no one else to watch her. They'd arrived at the airport with plenty of time, but security had taken longer than expected with Emma moving slowly. Now they were among the last passengers to reach the gate, and boarding was nearly complete. "Excuse me," Mark said, approaching the counter. "We're for the flight to Chicago." The gate agent, a woman with her hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her features, barely glanced up from her computer. Her name tag read, Patricia. "Boarding pass and ID," she said flatly. Mark fumbled with his phone, pulling up their digital boarding passes while balancing Emma's backpack and their small carry-on. Emma leaned heavily against him, clearly exhausted. "Final boarding call for Flight 2187 to Chicago," announced the overhead speaker. "Here you go," Mark said, showing his phone screen. Patricia glanced at it. "You're in boarding group 4. We're only boarding groups 1 and 2 right now." Mark blinked in confusion. "But they just called final boarding. That's for passengers already in line. You need to wait until your group is called." She pointed to a sign nearby. "I understand, but my daughter isn't feeling well, and we really need to make this flight. My mother is in the hospital." "Everyone has a story, sir," Patricia interrupted. "Please step back and wait until your group is called." Emma tugged at Mark's hand. "Daddy, I don't feel good." Mark knelt down beside her. Her forehead was warm to the touch, and her cheeks were flushed. "I know, Em. Just hang in there a little longer." When he stood back up, he noticed the boarding area had emptied considerably. Only a handful of passengers remained. "Look," he said, trying to keep his voice level, "I can see the plane is almost boarded. We have assigned seats. Could you please just let us through? My daughter is sick, and we need to get to Chicago as soon as possible." Patricia's expression hardened. "Sir, airline policy is clear. You board with your assigned group. If you can't follow simple instructions, perhaps you should consider another flight." Mark felt his patience slipping. "Another flight? My mother had a stroke. She's in intensive care. We need to be on this flight." "That's not my concern. Rules exist for a reason. What possible reason could there be to keep us standing here when the plane is nearly boarded and my child is sick?" Mark's voice rose slightly, drawing attention from nearby passengers. Patricia stood up straighter. "Sir, I need you to lower your voice and step back from the counter. Now." Emma began to cry softly, clutching her stuffed rabbit tighter. "Please," Mark said, desperation creeping into his voice. "Just let us board. I'm begging you." I don't care if your daughter is sick. Rules are rules. Step back, now. Patricia's voice was loud enough that several people turned to stare. Mark felt a surge of helpless anger. He was about to respond when a calm voice spoke from behind him. Is there a problem here? Mark turned to see a tall man in his 50s wearing a well-tailored suit. There was something authoritative about his presence, though he spoke gently. This gentleman is trying to board out of turn, Patricia explained, her tone suddenly more professional. I've asked him to wait for his group to be called. The man looked at Mark, then down at Emma, who was now leaning heavily against her father's leg, tears streaming down her flushed face. Your daughter doesn't look well, he observed. She has a fever, Mark explained. We need to get to Chicago. My mother had a stroke and is in the hospital. I'm a single dad, I had no choice but to bring Emma with me, even though she's sick. The man nodded thoughtfully, then turned to Patricia. How many passengers are left to board? Patricia straightened her posture. Less than 10, sir, but policy clearly states. I'm familiar with the policy, the man interrupted gently. I wrote it. Patricia's eyes widened slightly. Sir? The man reached into his pocket and produced a business card, handing it to her. Daniel Reynolds, CEO of Horizon Airlines. The color drained from Patricia's face as she stared at the card. Reynolds turned back to Mark. Sir, please take your daughter and board the aircraft. The flight attendants will make sure you both have everything you need during the flight. Thank you, Mark said, relief washing over him. As they moved toward the jetway, Reynolds added, and sir? I hope your mother recovers quickly. Mark nodded gratefully, guiding Emma toward the plane. Behind them, he could hear Reynolds speaking quietly but firmly to Patricia. Once settled on the plane, a flight attendant approached with a pillow and blanket for Emma, along with some ginger ale for her stomach. Mr. Reynolds radioed ahead, she explained with a smile. We'll take good care of you both. Emma finally fell asleep as the plane took off, her head resting on Mark's lap. He stroked her hair gently, grateful for the unexpected kindness that had allowed them to make this crucial journey. 3 days later, as Mark sat beside his mother's hospital bed, his phone pinged with an email notification. Emma was feeling better and was coloring quietly in a chair nearby, her grandmother now awake and recovering slowly. The email was from Horizon Airlines, from Daniel Reynolds himself. Dear Mr. Wilson, it read. I wanted to personally apologize for your experience at the gate. While our policies are important, they should never supersede human compassion and common sense. I've initiated a company-wide review of our boarding procedures, with a new emphasis on accommodating passengers with special circumstances, particularly those traveling with children or facing family emergencies. Additionally, I'd like to offer you and your daughter complimentary round-trip tickets for your return journey, whenever that may be. Please take all the time you need with your mother. Sometimes it takes seeing a situation through another's eyes to recognize when change is needed. Thank you for that reminder. Wishing your family well. Daniel Reynolds, CEO, Horizon Airlines. Mark read the email twice, a lump forming in his throat. He looked over at his mother, now awake and smiling weakly as she watched Emma color. They had made it in time. Against the odds, they had made it. The story of Mark and Emma Wilson might have ended there, known only to those directly involved. But 6 months later, Daniel Reynolds gave a keynote speech at the National Airline Industry Conference, where he shared their story, without names, as the catalyst for Horizon's new, compassionate boarding initiative. We're in the business of connecting people, Reynolds told the audience. Sometimes that means connecting a sick child and her father to a grandmother in need. Our policies should facilitate those connections, not hinder them. The initiative received widespread praise and was soon adopted by other airlines. Patricia, the gate agent, had been required to undergo additional training but kept her job. Reynolds believed in second chances and learning opportunities rather than punishment. As for Mark and Emma, they used their complimentary tickets to visit Mark's mother once she had fully recovered. This time, their boarding experience was entirely different. The same gate agent, Patricia, was working that day. When she saw them, she stepped out from behind the counter. "I owe you both an apology," she said quietly. "I've learned a lot since we last met." Mark nodded, accepting her words. We all have moments when we forget what matters most. Emma, healthy and energetic now, looked up at Patricia and offered her stuffed rabbit to shake hands. Patricia laughed and played along, the tension of their previous encounter dissolving. As they boarded the plane, Mark reflected on how a moment of conflict had ultimately led to positive change, not just for his family, but potentially for thousands of travelers facing similar circumstances. Sometimes, the most powerful words aren't, "Step back, now," but rather, "How can I help?" It's a lesson worth remembering, whether you're running an airline or simply moving through life, encountering others on their own difficult journeys. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Remember, a single act of compassion can create ripples that change entire systems. Share your own stories of unexpected kindness in the comments below, and join our community of believers in the power of human connection.